Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series. We've got preview of the Arsenal West Ham game. We've got news regarding transfers, and we've got reaction to Arteta's press conference. So let's get straight into it. See, still got it. Still got the old intro. A lot better than yesterday's one. Anyway, we don't talk about that. But yes, Arsenal are playing West Ham tomorrow in our second game of the Premier League season. And it's one I'm feeling particularly confident about. I know that's from famous last words, but how could you not be more confident after Arsenal's recent bout of fixtures in which they, of course, beat Fulham 3-0 away from home? Lacazette, Aubameyang and Gabriel with the goals, and you might see them feature a little bit in a moment as well. And of course, it's fantastic to see that Arteta's form has continued on from the FA Cup final into the Community Shield and into the start of the new Premier League season. So hopes are that we can keep up our momentum as we move forward into this new Premier League season, and that is going to be a nice way to do it with West Ham as our next opponent, who are, it's fair to say, struggling. They're not in the best of positions. They, of course, lost their opening game to Newcastle United. And in fact, if you want to hear a little bit more of my thoughts and the side of the West Ham stuff, go check out Irons United on Twitter at Irons_United. I was over there with them doing a preview show for this game on their channel. So if you want to see the other side of things, go check those guys out. But we start off the show, as we always do, by talking about what we expect to see from Arteta and my own kind of predictions for the lineup. Now, it saved me work this week because if I've learned anything, it's to go with my gut instinct. And that's what I'm going to do this week, because I think that the lineup that Arteta may go for is pretty much going to be what I think, or what I'd like us to go for. So let's get that up on the screen for you now. So there's only one change for me. Only one change, and that is with the news that David Luiz is fit. I bring our Brazilian hero in to join up with Gabriel. Now, I've got a good reason for this. Holding was good. Holding was great, I thought. I thought he was really good against Fulham. However, Gabriel was better. And Gabriel was better playing with an Englishman and a Scotsman either side of him, of which he could not really communicate with. And to have David Luiz next to Gabriel, I think, is important for his development. It's important for his understanding, and it's important for his communication on the pitch. And I think that actually having Luiz next to Gabriel would make him even better than what he was against Fulham. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. But other than that, the rest of the team is the same. Bellerin, Elneny, Xhaka and Mainsley in the midfield, with Willian, Lacazette and Aubameyang up top. And this is my Arteta 11, but it's also my own 11 as well. So I just think that's what I would like us to see do. We need to see consistency. Only a couple of changes throughout games here and there, other than for obviously the other competitions. But in the Premier League, we need to try and keep it consistent. Consistency is going to be key this season. Keeping things in check, keeping things stocked and stacked together in the way that we are comfortable and we are knowledgeable with. And this is the best way I see it happening. You've got Willian, you've got Lacazette, Aubameyang. They seem to be working in really fine tune. Xhaka and Elneny in the middle are great in both the Community Shield and against Fulham. And I'm happy for that to continue for the moment before any other additions maybe grace our Emirates shores in the near future. That's obviously talking about the lineup. Rydog says it's a waste of Tierney, to be fair. Now, what I would say to that, Rydog, is that I would say, first of all, think again, because this left centre-back role for Tierney isn't something that is stagnant. It's not something that's static. It's not something that stays in the same position. I understand what you're saying. I get the point of talking about him being wasted, not being able to use his crossing. But actually, what you do get from Kieran Tierney when he plays in this formation is the ability to run forward still, because he's got cover, not only from Maitland-Niles that like changes and chops and changes with him, but also you've got the ability for Kieran Tierney to be someone that does get forward when Granit Xhaka covers him. And the fact that he's covered in that position is actually really key. And he gets more forward than you might think. The amount of crosses that he still managed to put 2 crosses in against Fulham. He went on a dribble. His passes into the final third were still frequent. And actually, when you saw what he's able to do with that pass from inside the box in the FA Cup final and in the FA Cup semi-final, which led Aubameyang to score and, of course, earn the penalty in the FA Cup final as well. That comes from Tierney playing that slightly deeper role. His through ball is excellent. His passes to the final third are strong. And it's something that we need to make sure that we utilise in his game. 13 passes were made into the final third with 8 of them reaching their target. He received the ball still 71 times. He gets on the ball a hell of a lot. And his forward to backward passing is definitely a strong ratio. He passes forwards nearly double the amount of times than he does backwards, playing in this role. I think it's key for Tierney to stay in this team and to stay with the back 3 for the moment. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Cole Hellberg says Luiz played against Liverpool after 1 day of training. Exactly. Voodoo Charles says Luiz is too slow to be the right back, the right centre back. I don't know where you're getting this Holding pace from, because Holding is not a quick centre back. And to be honest, I don't even look at David Luiz as a slow centre back, really. As centre backs go, I don't think David Luiz is actually that slow. So I'm not sure that that's the right way to gauge it, especially when you're looking at Rob Holding, who, again, is not by any means a quick player. Now, this is not down to take it. This is not me saying that we should take Holding out because he doesn't deserve that spot. For me, the reason for putting Luiz in there is because it complements Gabriel. It enables Gabriel to be someone that can be better with added communication, with the ability to communicate with another defender. I think it improves Gabriel. Now, there is an argument to put Gabriel in that left centre-back spot, play Tierney slightly further up, and bring William Saliba in. Now, do you throw William Saliba into this game? Well, if you are going to throw him into a Premier League game, this isn't too bad of an option to do that for. I can see a couple of you in the chat box are suggesting that. Let me find where it was. Archie says Saliba, Luiz, and Gabriel, Tom. I just like Tierney in this left centre-back role. You might think he's wasted. I don't think he is. I think that left-hand side is absolutely well-balanced. I think it works perfectly. I think Xhaka himself, Tierney, and Mainsley work really together in the 3 and supporting Aubameyang and letting him be free, which is not what you get on the right-hand side. Whoever plays that right centre-back slot does not have the same sort of communication that what with Tierney does. What the Tierney, Mainsley, Xhaka trio enable is for Aubameyang to act as a second striker on the left-hand side, rather than what Willian was where Willian is actually needed to come back a lot more often than what Aubameyang is. And that's why you see him being more creative and you see Aubameyang calling for the ball to be incisive and dangerous. And that's why I like Tierney in that left-hand centre-back spot, because it enables you to balance the left-hand side much more than if you were to, say, put Gabriel there, and then you'd need Gabriel to be doing a lot more forward pushing, which isn't really in his repertoire. Gabriel isn't someone that takes the ball out from the back. He enjoys a long pass when he gets the opportunity and gets his confidence up, but actually he's not going to be that guy. And I actually quite like Gabriel in the centre of that back 3, being the focus of heading and clearances out, being the focus of being sort of the guy that goes to, that pushes forward, closes players down, pressures them, and then Bellerin or Tierney or Xhaka drops into the back 3 to cover as he presses to win the ball back as a strong tackler. So for me, I think the left-hand side is perfectly balanced with Tierney in that spot for sure. Avon says, Arteta is moving us right away from Luiz and Mustafi. Luiz will get more of the cup games. And that's fair enough. Let's go into Arteta's press conference, which of course you can check out on arsenal.com. But let's read through what he has been saying. So in terms of transfers, on whether we need to sell to bring in more players, he says, we are trying all the time to adjust the squad in a more efficient way. It is clear at the moment that it has to go both ways. And in order to achieve that, we still have some time, but we are pretty clear in what we are trying to do. On a deal for the new goalkeeper, obviously with the departure of Emi, which is a big loss and someone that I think we all wish the best to for what he has done for the football club, as well as the person that he is, we have to replace him. We are looking in the market, and I think we will shortly be in a position to announce something. So 2 things there. We need to sell to buy. Second thing, goalkeeper's on his way. I think there's under no illusions as to who that goalkeeper is. In fact, if you go on Charles Watts' Twitter page right now, it'll tell you that he was actually a London Coley today. Good old runner Alex Runnison. Roadrunner, I reckon he'll get called a few times. That name is ridiculous. But yeah, it's good to see that we're bringing in a second goalkeeper that's obviously, he's not of the quality of Emi Martinez, but he's not costing us the same quality as Emi Martinez. And that means that money can be put elsewhere. And that is really, really key. On a deal for the new keeper, he says, on how close that is, he says, I don't know. In football, the hours can become days, and then something that looks unlikely can happen straight away. So unfortunately, I cannot tell you. He says, on whether we need one or two keepers, he says, well, depending on what is going to happen with our third goalkeeper position as well, because we had some talks about that over the past few months. So still the market is open and things can change. So in regards to that, Matt Macy could be on the move if you're going to take into that account on being linked to some of the big names in midfield. Now, I wonder, who could those big names be? I don't know. Anyway, he says, sorry, unfortunately, I cannot talk about players that are not at our club, but I appreciate the question. Very diplomatic. On whether he's under pressure to let go of players he doesn't want to because he can't move on players that he would prefer to let go. He says, no, again, with all the players that we have here, we're going to try and get the best out of them. We're going to try and improve them as much as we possibly can and create the right environment for them so they are happy at this club, because I believe it's the most important thing for them to perform to the level that we want. After that, obviously in the market, there are things we cannot control. There are things that we can control, and let's try to manage them in the best possible way. It's a good question, because asking him whether he's ended up having to sell players that he didn't necessarily want to because he needs the money to refund or sort of inject us with financial capacity to be able to then buy players is an interesting one. But he reiterates the point that he's going to try and keep the players that he wants here. And if he ends up keeping players that he kind of wanted to move on, he's still going to try and make the best of them. On Sead Kolasinac being linked with Leverkusen for family reasons, it's hard to stand in a player's way in those circumstances. I think in every case, you have to try and take it individually. First of all, try to understand the reason, if that's the case, when they want to leave and why. If there are things that you can help them to change, to give them more, you have to try to maximize those options. And when it comes to a point where it's obviously something you cannot control and cannot help, and it's evident and clear, then you open the door. But then it goes down to the club to decide when and how, and that's a player with a contract that has to get the right value to go to the right club. Whether Kolasinac is still up in the air. I mean, he goes on to say at the moment, I'm not expecting anyone to leave shortly. That's where I am right now. So, I mean, there you have that. Kolasinac has to be moved on. He can't be taking 100 grand a week wages here, and he needs to be moved on to a club in which he's going to obviously get us a decent fee for him as well, so we can more effectively go in for the targets that we actually want to get this summer. Kolasinac needs to be dispensable for that. In terms of the Emi Martinez departure being necessary for future transfers, he says, well, at the end of the day, we have to find some balance between what we want to achieve with our squad and our finances. And it gets to the point where if you want to achieve certain things, you need to sacrifice others. Time will tell whether we are weaker or not. And obviously the recruitment we are planning to do to try and get our second goalkeeper, they will hopefully bring a really good performance level. We can see Emi being successful at Villa, and we are all happy for him. So that kind of tells you that the club is going down that route. They are going down the route of trying to bring in players which are going to be not necessarily bringing. They're trying to sell players to then bring in players. Is where I was going with that. Is that they're trying to sell the players for a decent fee and then reinvest money to invest that position. If it's the goalkeeper, it's a small amount to get the biggest profit margin. But in terms of actual other players, it's going to be about investing and improving. Now, this is an interesting question on Reiss Nelson. I think they realise the competition we have in forward positions. I've already spoken with Reiss about it, and I really like the way he's training. I think we both agree about how much he's improved in the last few months, and he's going to carry on pushing himself and the rest of the team. He needs to be ready, because in football, unfortunately or fortunately, things don't take 3 months to change. It can take 3 minutes, and you have to be ready when that opportunity comes. And whether Reiss Nelson needs to be playing regular to really progress. I said, I think if you ask any of those 27 players if they need to play, they will, of course, say yes. I need to play regularly. I need to play minutes. But at the moment, it's just not possible. Playing one game week and with this rule of just being able to have 18 players, it's very difficult to give everyone the same minutes as possible. So there you go. I mean, for me, think that when you look at what's going on with Reiss Nelson, he's a sellable asset, But he's also still a lot of potential in this guy. And if we can get him a good low move to get him regular minutes, great. But if he means he stays, then you've got to think about the fact that we can use him in those competitions. And that's also important. Last bit of news today, and that is on Mr. Houssem Aouar. We cannot go a single show without talking about Mr. Aouar. And the latest kind of information that we've got is that the good old president, good old Mr. Alas from Lyon, has come out saying that he doesn't think that he is going anywhere. He thinks that as their best player, he is going to be remaining at Lyon. Now, if there's one thing that we need to know about Mr. Alas is that sometimes the things that he says and the things that happen are not the same. And I think that goes for a lot of things. And I wouldn't be reading too much into this if I was you, because Lacazette, it's a very similar situation. What happened with him? Alas talked a lot and he still left. So don't worry too much about these comments from Mr. Alas, because ultimately that may not be the case. That is all I'll say on that. There's nothing else. There's nothing extra. Arsenal, I think, if you've seen from his comments, then obviously, I mean, we were still waiting. We're still waiting to see sales. You're not going to see anyone come in, I don't think, until the likes of Torreira, etc., move on. And speaking of Torreira, Gary Mullen, yes, I did see the news, and I'm going to be writing about it in about 20 minutes' time over on 101. So make sure you're following over there at 101 Great Goals. Lucas Torreira is now being linked with, believe it or not, Atletico Madrid. Now, I think. I'm going to rack my brains here because I'm sure there's a player there that we want. Help me out in the chat. Who is it? Who is it we want? Of course, Thomas Partey is the guy that Arsenal have been desperate to sign for what feels like 70 million years. And and obviously, Lucas Torreira's liking by good old El Cholo is that... is that there could be some deal between these two. Let me try and find the tweet. Let me try and find the actual tweet. Let's see if there's any real credence in this. If we go on Twitter, where is our good pal? It's Arsenic, isn't it, that tweeted it? From Sebas Giovanelli. I am not aware of Sebas. Tell me if I'm wrong. I may just be being neglectful of this. But here we go. Diego Simeone called Lucas Torreira. Let's get this up on the screen so that you guys can see it as well. Here we go. Diego Simeone called Lucas Torreira and told him he wants him to join Atleti. The midfielder of Uruguay seemed to have an Italian future, but and that was it. That was it. I suppose it's a but. Who knows what can happen? Will it happen? I'd be very, very shocked to see Lucas Torreira end up at Atletico Madrid. But stranger things have happened in the world of football. So there you go. There you go, Gary. I mean, I just don't know whether or not Torreira will end up there. It seems too good to be true. Doesn't mean I'm not going to write about it, though. That's for sure, because it's news. It's something that's really interesting. And if the sort of dynamic between the two clubs, can something be sorted out between Arsenal and Atletico Madrid? I don't know. I think his future definitely lies in Italy. I think he's shown a previous desire to go there, family-wise as well. So, yeah, I'm just not quite sure at the moment. Avon asked a good question. Did the Mark Rocker deal go through? I actually haven't really been following this as much as maybe I should have done. 3 weeks ago is the latest info that we had regarding Mark Rocker. So no, that deal has not gone through yet, which is probably one of the reasons maybe why Torreira is being linked with Atletico Madrid, because they've not signed Rocker. So who knows at this stage what is going to happen? We've got less than, I think we've just got over 2 weeks or so left of the window. It is getting to crunch time, and that means it's going to get a little bit crazy. You will hear some funny stories. You will hear some madness that will be approaching, but there's only one thing that we can be sure of, and that is that Arsenal play West Ham tomorrow. I'm going for a 3-0 win in that game. Let's have your predictions in the chat box before we wrap today's show up. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm hoping for some nice fluidity, some dynamism, some electricity from our front line, while still maintaining the defensive solidness that we've seen from Arteta's new look back three. For me, 3-0 and a really comfortable victory. Guna Matt 1066 says 4-0. Guna Crack Podcast, go check him out. It's Owen and the guys. 4-1. Yonic Mac 3-2. Manoush says 3-0. Ashwin says 2-0 Arsenal. Joseph says 2-0 Arsenal. Avon says 3-0 to the Arsenal, just like me. E-commerce reckons it's going to be 3. Arshen says it's going to be 4-0. Adam Shroud says it's going to be 2-0. So there's lots of confidence. I'm liking this. Laurie Nix, 2-0 Arsenal. Rodney, 3-zip is going to be the score, and I'm loving this confidence. Carl Halberg, 7-1. E-commerce, 3-0. Daniel Robert, 5-0. The OG, 3-0. So many of you are confident with tomorrow's result. And as you know, we always do our Raw reaction shows straight after the game. And if you follow us over on Twitter at the Gooner Talk TV, go and check us out there. I've received a new gift that arrived in the post yesterday, and it may be making an appearance in tomorrow's show. So if you want to tune in straight after tomorrow's game against West Ham, I believe it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, if I'm right. So a late one. So make sure you're up early if you're over in the east, and you're up late, or not even up late. Don't even about late over in the west. You got it nice and chill afternoon game for you guys. But yeah, other than that, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, as it always is. I'll be back tomorrow straight after the game for the reaction show. Any news we will, of course, cover. But make sure you go check us out at the Gooner Talk TV. Make sure you go and following over the articles for the next 3 hours or so over at 101 Great Goals. I will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.